Hello, my name is Markus Buehler. I'm the McAfee Professor of Engineering at MIT and a composer of experimental music. I've developed a method to use biological living materials like spiderwebs, proteins, and cells of viruses or snail venoms to make music. Have you ever wondered how a virus would sound like, such as the pathogen that causes COVID-19? We have solved this problem by using a new instrumentation method that translates molecular structures to rigorously defined sound generation and music through a novel compositional approach. My method also works the other way around. I can use music as a universal language to develop new proteins and new materials and treat diseases. Proteins are life's materials of choice, encoded by DNA, which is then translated into amino acids, which then assemble or fold into complex structures like spiderweb cells or pathogens. However, we do not yet know what proteins form from the specific codes of DNA. In the COVID-19 pathogen, for instance, there are around 30,000 letters of DNA, but we know very little about what proteins are formed, how they look like, and what their function is. And without knowing this, it's very difficult to develop treatments or vaccines. We have discovered a new way to solve this problem. Materials can be a source for sound in many different ways, building on the historical use of vibrations of strings or membranes or vibrating air. I have developed a method to tease out molecular motions of matter at the quantum level and use it to make materials audible in novel ways and use it to construct new musical forms. This new paradigm has resulted in the use of spiderwebs, protein molecules, the building blocks of life, or the stresses inside a material at their singular breaking point as musical instruments. We call it Materiomusic. I am intrigued to understand how these new sources of vibrations sound like and what kind of human emotions they will generate. This is how it works. I will talk now a little bit about the science behind the instrument. We can make proteins audible based on the unique vibrational signature of each of the chemical Lego bricks nature uses to build life. Each letter encoded in the DNA, the amino acids, has a unique sound and we can hear it. As the proteins form, these sounds are modulated in time, volume, and overlaid, creating a complex interwoven assembly of sound. Recently, we have used this approach to develop a musical form of the proteins in the virus that causes COVID-19, a symphony made by nature. We're not simply assigning a key on a keyboard to each DNA letter. We are actually coding the physical basis for its sound and use musical structure to represent 3D geometry. We can now hear how three-dimensional geometry looks like in music. This is a critical aspect in molecular biology to understand the language, the secrets of life. It is made possible by a stunning similarity between sound and matter. In both music and materials, there are hierarchies of building blocks. In matter, we have atoms forming molecules, forming grains, forming the structure of materials. In sound, we have sine waves, we have tones forming melodies, harmonies, and rhythms forming music. And molecules aren't static as assumed in textbooks. They're actually continuously moving and vibrating. And we have discovered that they generate a sort of molecular sound due to their quantum level motions. I've used this method to create a variety of new musical sound forms. These include fracture counterpoint, using the forces between atoms in a breaking material at its rupture point, spiderwebs, using a spiderweb as a 1,000-string harp with a unique, natural, amorphous tuning, and protein music, translating the machinery of life into sounds and composition. This new approach uses a computer algorithm to make the molecular motions of matter audible, based on the molecular dynamics models that solve the mechanics by which molecules move in time. We can access various levels of information inside a molecule and generate sound based on the microscopic details of matter, making invisible audible and accessible. One exciting direction is to interactively play these new sound forms, and we've realized this in several new ways. One approach is to use a Rowley block connected to a max patch in Ableton Live, which connects to the algorithm interactively. This is how it sounds like as I play across modes of a protein molecule. The first protein is lysozyme, an enzyme in our body, protein data bank code 194L. Here I experiment with sounds in a coronavirus antibody. SARS spike protein receptor binding domain in a complex with a neutralizing antibody ATR, protein data bank code 2GHW. Another way we've implemented the instrument is in a freely available app that allows anyone to design their own new protein. Compose a melody on your keyboard, on your smartphone, and then translate it into an amino acid sequence and DNA. Which protein will you make? Musicians can now solve bioengineering problems and come up with new biological ideas based on musical concepts. The process can be formalized further and used as a rigorous approach to translate proteins to music. This has resulted in a series of compositions you can listen to on SoundCloud. My motivation for creating this method is my fascination with music and sound. Since I was a child, I've been intrigued to recreate existing musical pieces and make my own music, and investigating where music actually comes from. Well, it comes from our brain, the ideas of the composer, but what else is out there? More recently, my research has focused on whether music is an audible reflection of the matter itself, the cells, neurons in our brain, or the structures within our bodies, such as our bones, the hierarchical structures that range from the nano to the macro scale. What is music made by nature? Is there music in nature, and how can it speak to us? And how can we communicate back across species, across scales, across paradigms? But that's not all. Have you ever wondered if your favorite song could be made into a material that you can see and touch? Could we use the amazing ability of humans to imagine new sounds, new melodies, new rhythms, to make new music that can be used to solve critical challenges our world is facing today, such as climate change or the need for low carbon, low energy materials? We have done that and made new protein biomaterials through sound. Since the mapping of amino acids to sound is unique, it can be reversed. Out of sound emerges a unique sequence of amino acids. This allowed us to come up with new proteins that nature has not yet invented. Music is also a very powerful way to encode new information, especially for machine learning algorithms. AI can be used very effectively to play protein songs to a computer and letting it learn patterns and compose new music that can then be translated back into new DNA codes and then made in the lab. This work has had very broad impact. Nature can serve as an inspiration for better materials, which are more resilient, resistant, greener, and need less energy, and are made from non-toxic substances. Silk, for instance, is an amazing material, stronger than steel, yet it is built at room temperature, completely green, and you can eat it. By linking sound and matter, we can also develop new musical instruments. Think of proteins or living organisms or spiderwebs as new interactive musical forms. It opens a whole new palette of sound that resemble the unseen and that provide a creative outlet. The COVID-19 piece has had worldwide impact, connecting people, allowing engagement with a fear-causing subject, and using music as a universal language. Some have described the piece as the soundtrack of the pandemic. The musical model of the pathogen of COVID-19 is a symphony made by nature, finding beauty in a deadly virus. The beauty emerges because of the intricate design of the virus, which, when translated to music, registers in our brain as a familiar structure of classical music. The division between death and beauty shows the concept of deceit. A deadly virus appears beautiful, just like the virus deceives the human cell when it enters it, pretending to be a friendly visitor before entering the cell and replicating. The resulting music features counterpoint, we've discovered, a compositional concept used by Johann Sebastian Bach. Protein music is counterpoint music. The question arises, did Bach inadvertently discover some of the most innate secrets the way life is built? Music is everywhere. Matter is sound and sound is matter. It shows the amazingly deep connections between material and music and how we can learn from breaking barriers between disciplines. Emerging topics of current investigation include, can we translate a set of classical music like Bach, Beethoven, Mozart into proteins and use their compositional ideas as new materials design platforms. Finally, we're trying to better understand the COVID-19 pathogen and help to develop treatments. Think of developing counter-maladies that can be developed to stick well to the virus protein as a potential source for antibodies.
Thank you.